What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Hello.
So, let's talk really quickly about a couple of things. Number one, for anybody keeping track of the Idaho murders, there's some weird shit going on.
Yeah.
I read the text messages that were taken out and my heart shattered for those girls because you can completely tell.
Also, the dinner.
They're terrified. Now we find out because, again, they have been so hush about it that we don't even know what's going on. As a matter of fact, I watched the video that Sierra sent me a video. I watched the video that you sent me.
Yeah.
And it's like when the lady's talking about it, it's like half the shit she can't even talk about it because they redacted it from the ability for people to read it. And so it's like, well, why are we hiding everything?
And again, they took down the fucking house.
They took down the house, so now they can't even go back.
I have never heard of technically, because it is unsolved, because nobody's
been found guilty.
Yet. I have never heard of you demolishing the crime scene before. There are even times where, to this day, wherever a crime took place is still available, and they'll go back and look at the crime scene, and sometimes shit gets overturned. So that house should have never been destroyed. It should have been probably condemned and been like, nope, off the market, keep it so we can solve the crime. But
I mean, if I'm guessing, the owners of the house were like, can we just get rid of the house so that we can whatever?
I also think it was Moscow, Idaho, which I've been there.
It's a little town.
It's tiny as fuck.
Absolutely.
And my thing is I think it was they should have immediately said, FBI, take all this, because I think there may have been some things that they might have fucked up a little bit on.
Well, like
I'm not saying it's not Brian Kohberger, but I'm not saying it is.
For instance, they arrested Brian Kohberger because they found a knife sheath with his DNA on it. Yeah?
Yes. Well, no. They found a partial fingerprint that through DNA matching, they were able to find his dad, which then linked it to him.
Okay, so they did that. And now we're finding out that there were blood fingerprints. Is that what it was? Blood fingerprints, or was it blood spatters? I thought it was a fingerprint. I thought it was fingerprints with blood.
The recent one?
Yeah.
I thought it was blood, but it could have been fingerprint. Regardless, it's
DNA.
There's DNA
actual
evidence
blood
that is
DNA
not linked to
that
any
is not,
of the four and not linked to Brian. And they do know that it could potentially be two males.
Yeah.
Well, they can actually said.
They can
not
tell
one, but
they can
two
tell.
different ones.
Well, they can tell if those two DNAs don't match.
Male or female.
The other part is they also have a mixed, what did they say? They have a mixed DNA that was found under one of the victim's fingernails.
Oh yeah, that's the one that I saw most recently.
And
it doesn't match
Brian Kohberger at all. And now the thing is, some of the prosecuting attorneys and defense attorneys have said, now this is not a clear cut like, oh, he's not guilty. What they said though is this is a really good chance for his lawyers to be like, yeah, you're right.
Kill her.
He's not exactly like, he's not 100% innocent because you did have his fingerprint on a sheath of a weapon, right? Or the sheath of this knife that was
but
supposedly
it probably,
killed him.
like we've said from the beginning, is not just him.
Well, either that or my thought process was you have a partial fingerprint on the sheath of a knife that was used in this thing. One, what if it's wrong? Two, what if that was his knife? What if he sold it to somebody? What if he had, what if it was somebody he knows, right? So there's that part. But the other part of it is,
it's a small fucking town. Like, people, when I tell you it's small, it's fucking tiny.
I mean, but he was not in Moscow because he was in Pullman.
Okay, for those of you that don't know,
they're right
Pullman
next to
and
each
Moscow
other.
are right next to each other, but
they're both college
The
towns.
combination of them is still, it's like a 15-minute drive to get through all of it.
But the thing is from the beginning of this case, I have said it's been so hush and quiet. I'm not saying that he did or didn't do it because I don't know, but I'm sitting here going, typically when there's something like this, they're giving you all this information. And once they have somebody arrested, they share more information.
Right.
They have not shared shit. And then now they're doing the trial. And it's like all of a sudden we're finding out that there's blood evidence from unknown males that are on the banister and in part of the house that there's nowhere else. It's like, what the fuck?
You're also telling me that this is such a high case. Like, people all over know about this case, but especially here at Pacific Northwest. You're really telling me that, because they said they're not letting people in to watch the trial.
Which again, why? Because they have a gag order on the whole trial.
Right. That's thank you. That's what I was trying to think of what it was.
Why are we gag ordering a trial about a man that supposedly killed four college students? And you're not
nowhere.
And for literally no motive. There's
that's no the other connection part. To him and them.
That's the other part is there has been zero motive.
Right.
Which is typically the number one thing you got to find. People don't just go around randomly killing people unless you're a serial killer. But even then, you have set whatever.
Well, nobody's going to talk about the dog that was murdered kind of in the same fashion.
Right.
Literally like a couple weeks before that.
Right.
And everybody's like, nobody wanted to look into that.
Right.
Which is probably linked to these four individuals.
Yeah, it's...
Well, and from the beginning, because I remember you and I talking about it, Brian Kohberger, when he got arrested, had asked them, who else have you arrested?
Am I the only one that...
Yeah, am I the only one? Or who else? Or something along the lines to basically be like, okay, do you have the other guy type of situation?
Right. And there is a
chance. So far, there's been nothing. But now... Now I totally believe that there's somebody else.
Well, and
I think blood DNA is more accurate than a fucking
The only thing about the blood DNA, the only downfall to it is you don't know when it happened. This was a house of college students that were partying. It could have been blood DNA from like whatever, from a party that they had and somebody cut themselves.
Unless
but
it was
that
like
would be
like quote
that
unquote
would be
fresh.
Really weird. You know what I mean? But here's why it sucks that they tore the house down. Now they can't go back and look at that blood evidence. Now they can't go back and retest it.
All the evidence in the house is gone.
Exactly. So you've literally made it. There's in my honest. And I mean this very much so.
I think they panicked and wanted to get somebody.
In my honest opinion, I think there's a really good chance that Brian Kohberger, whether he did it or not, is going to be found not guilty. Because
possibly
they're now giving a reason for the jury to doubt. Because you say, we have this. If
I was a juror member, I'd be questioning it now. Because I'd be like, well,
there's a lot of different things. There's, first of all, the car that they showed didn't really match the car that he had. And then the timing of when he was supposed to be somewhere was off, and the timing of the murders has been off. I mean, in the beginning, they said they were murdered at 2 a.m, and now it's like 4 a.m. is when they were murdered. So there's all these weird things. And then to tear the house down right away, and then
it wasn't even when the trial happened. Like before the trial happened, they tore the house down.
Yeah, it was literally like...
It was like a week after, a couple months after.
It was basically once they arrested him. They tore the house down.
Which is so dumb.
And then it's like, and then on top of it, you have, you've got a partial fingerprint on a sheath of a knife. But by the way, there's no knife in it. It's a sheath of a knife. So there is no knife there. And then you've got blood DNA from other unidentified males that are in the same vicinity of where the person who killed these people would have left. You're throwing a lot of doubt on if it was Brian Kohberger or if it was Brian Kohberger by himself. And I think that there's no motive. There's nothing.
I mean, from the beginning, I don't think that it's just one individual.
I don't know. I mean, 17 minutes is how long it supposedly took. And I mean, that you killed 4 people in 17 minutes. If you're stabbing them, I mean, that's definitely one person could do that.
There's so much blood that it was seeping out of the house. Like
that. Yeah. There's that part, or like, that's
a lot of fucking blood.
And that's why it blows my mind. It's like, why the fuck would you tear that house down? Why would you tear that house down? You literally had 3 bedrooms or two bedrooms of crime scenes.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you tear that house down? I don't understand. It does a complete disservice to the kids that were killed. It does a disservice to the parents who are looking for answers. And unfortunately, it does a disservice to somebody like Brian Kohberger, who is being accused of this. And at the end of the day, you are innocent until proven guilty. And right now, I don't think they have enough proof for a jury to stand there and say, yep, he did it.
I know I'm not obviously a juror member, although it'd be so great if I was. But my thing is, I sit here and just from the things that they have released, I sit there and go, I don't know if he did it.
I know.
I question it.
I was questioning it from the beginning because of how the whole thing went down.
But this
now
especially makes me question it
and
more.
again, because they're keeping it so quiet. You're not letting anybody in. You're not letting... There's literally no coverage. And it's like, are you kidding me? These people deserve to have coverage and knowledge of what's going on. If he gets off because a jury doesn't find him guilty, people are going to want to fucking know why. And they're not sharing that information.
Yep.
So that was the first thing.
You know, our little tangent about it.
And then the second part that you have to remember now that I want to update people on, because we had talked about this last episode, was the Gene Hackman thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So just for anybody who didn't know, Gene Hackman's cause of death was actually a heart like heart failure, heart disease, based off from Alzheimer's. And his wife had actually died a week earlier of a different kind of disease. And the sad part about this is there's a really good chance that the reason he, died is if he's suffering from Alzheimer's, he probably didn't know she was dead or hadn't realized that she was dead. That's probably why the dog died, because he probably didn't. The dog was probably with her. But being an Alzheimer's or dementia patient, they can't survive on their own. And she was probably his caretaker.
Oh, 100%.
So no, there's no foul play in that scenario.
On one
hand
is good, right?
But it's
also so
really sad. It's super sad.
It's so sad.
So anyways, those are two things that I was going to talk about that's in like our realm of local stuff. Now, I'm going to tell you what we're talking about. I already have a lot of knowledge on this specific story because it happened a while ago. I heard a bunch about it, read a bunch about it. But it's funny that we talked about the Brian Koberg stuff in DNA because DNA has everything to do with this case.
Okay.
So before we get into it, I want to make a very quick warning that this episode has to do with rape of a minor and murder of a minor, a child. No problem to me and Sierra if this is not the case you want to listen to. So if you are not...
We will not be offended if you do not
if you are not
to
feeling any type of way about anything about minors, gladly skip this episode and we'll just catch you next week. But if you're here to stay, welcome to the story of John Miller. So this happened in 1988. April Tinsley is kidnapped, raped, and murdered in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it actually takes 30 years to find her killer, John Miller. Killer Miller. I rhymed. Sorry. Trying to lighten the mood here.
Ding.
All right. So the way that this case was reported makes it to where I actually have to tell this story differently than what we normally do. Normally we do like the background of the murderer and all this stuff. But in this case, there is literally not really much about the background because of how this case unfolded. Nobody gives a shit about John Miller's background. Nobody gives a shit about it at all. So instead of doing the background of who he was and blah, 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 I'm just going to tell you exactly how it happened. And because it takes 30 years, there's like a chronological order that this goes. So we're going to actually start with just what happened. So we're going to literally start with basically like the murder, which we don't normally do, but that's how this case is going to go. So on April 1st, 1988.
April Fools.
I know. I just realized that. How sad.
I'm sorry. It's not funny, but it's kind of funny.
On April 1st, 1988, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, 8-year-old April Tinsley is playing with her friends. And they're kind of like hopping from house to house, right? Like as 8-year-olds did in 1988. And
yeah, I was like, you wouldn't catch that shit.
No,
now.
Yeah. They're just playing outside of everybody's house, is having a good time. Well, they decide that they're going to move from one friend's house to the next friend's house. And so they all run over to their new friend, to the next person's house. And April's like, oh no, I forgot my umbrella. I'm going to go grab it. I'll be right back. So she runs back to go grab her umbrella and literally disappears. And so her friends don't immediately, first of all, they're little.
They're 8 years old.
They're not thinking, right. They, first of all, the amount of time, that's what I was going to say, the time that it took for her to not come back,
she probably. As an adult, I go, fuck, it's been 3 hours already.
They probably don't recognize that she's been gone for a long time. And also, for all they know, her mom called her into the house, right? So it just wasn't on their mind of like, oh no, we should go tell our parents that April didn't come back and she was supposed to come play with us. What triggers them to realize that she's gone is that April was due to be back at her home around 3:00 so that her mom could get her ready to start getting ready to eat dinner and like all this stuff. April doesn't show up. And her mom's like, no, April doesn't just not come home. First of all these parents probably are communicating. They probably all have set times their kids are supposed to be coming around, right? Like that's just not normal. April knows her time. She knows that she's got to be back in. Her mom said you can play. You need to be home by 3:00. Okay. So she doesn't show up. So she immediately calls the cops. Immediately. And she's like, something's not right. My daughter was supposed to be home. She's 8 years old and she didn't show up. Now, I don't know what's different about then versus now, but literally the cops were like, done. And they
now you have to wait like 24 hours. And I'm sitting here going, do you not understand what can happen in 24 hours?
I don't get that. So
I don't understand.
So they immediately literally come with the cops And then she explains what's going on. And within like an hour and a half, they have a huge ass search party with like 250 Fort Wayne police officers and like 50 volunteers, like a shit ton of people. And they are like searching everywhere for this little girl. Now, in today's world, it'd be like, why gotta wait 24 hours? She's not in immediate danger, right? They'd have this whole thing that would make it to be like, huh, okay. Now, there was a witness who does come forward and says, well, I did see a white man that was in his 30s, and he was forcing a girl that I think could have been April into his blue pickup truck or van. To which I say, why the fuck didn't you take like any note of the license plate?
Or why the fuck didn't you run yo, what the fuck you doing?
Up there and be like, excuse me, sir, what the fuck are you doing? Why the fuck did you also wait to call the cops? Why didn't you call the cops right then and there and be like, hello, I just saw, I think, an abduction.
Listen, low-key, I feel like
what are you doing?
Back then,
minding their business is
no,
what
seriously.
Doing.
I feel like people back in like even the 80s was very like, you kind of just turned.
Well, and to be fair, I'm
anything.
sure they probably honestly were under the assumption that it was like a dad trying to get his daughter
like
into
his
a
daughter
car.
was and wasn't listening.
Because that tends to be like, I know even now people are like, when you guys were little, I would tell you, if anybody ever tries to kidnap you,
drop and yell fire.
Yep, I told them to drop on the floor and lay dead weight because it's harder to pick them up, and yell fire. And the reason I tell them that is because if you're screaming, people are going to chalk it up as you are throwing a tantrum, and your dad
and
or
fire's
mom
gonna catch somebody's attention.
is taking you. Yes, and if you're yelling fire, 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 people are going to look, and if somebody's looking at you, you say, "This is not my dad. He's taking me."
In school, they taught us yell stranger danger.
Right, which stranger danger, that's not as much.
No, well, and also I'm saying, because one, that's a big ass.
That's
thing
a
to
long.
Yell.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you know how many times when we were kids and we were running around, we'd be like, stranger danger.
Exactly.
Bullshit. Like,
so that's why. But that is
dude. As an adult, well, first of all, it's different. I'll fight a motherfucker first, but I'm saying now as an adult, I'll still drop my ass, and it's a lot heavier now.
I'm saying,
fire,
like, my thing is, if you go dead weight and start yelling fire, people are going to pay attention because people are looking for a fire.
See, maybe I don't need
and then when you yell fire and you're like, that they're taking me, they're stealing me, and you make a big deal, people might actually stop and be like, hold on. Whereas if you're just kicking and screaming, they're going to be like, oh, temper tantrum. Yep. They continue to actually search for April for the next 3 days. They do not find her. Then on April 4th, 1988, a jogger ends up coming across April's body in a ditch in Spencerville, Indiana. Now, near the scene of where her body was, they found one of April's shoes and a sex toy in a shopping bag. Now, later, another person comes forward and claims to have seen a blue pickup truck near this area at some point. Now, April's autopsy results shows that she had been raped and then strangled to death. And it also showed that she had been deceased for 1 to 2 days. They also thought that she had only been in the ditch for about 4 hours. So it led them to believe...
So it was all pretty fucking quick.
Yeah, and it led them to believe... Well, it led them to believe that she was killed elsewhere. She was strangled and raped elsewhere, and then she was body dumped. Now, they did take DNA samples from her body, but of course, this is 1988, and the forensics just didn't have the technology needed quite yet to be able to match DNA the way that it should. However, in the 80s, they really did start taking DNA because DNA technology was starting to be talked about and starting to be brought up and starting to be learned and taught. And so they would take DNA and say, well, in the future someday, we might be able to use this, which also, this is why I'm saying this takes me to Kohberger. That's why I have a problem with them tearing the house down. They didn't think about future. You didn't think about, we might need to do this shit in the future. Yeah, so it took 30 years for them to find the person who did this. And it was through DNA, but had the officers who found her, or not the officers, had the medical examiner who did her body not taken DNA off her body, they would have never found this man. But they had the thought of like, okay, this crime doesn't just go away because it's over. That it just doesn't. And so the fact that in the Kohberger case, they were like, we think we got the guy. Let's tear the house down. Like, no.
And what now about coming out with information that's like,
yes. I'm like, what?
Better not.
So on April 5th, 1988, there is now a lot of people invested in this April murder. There are 2 radio stations who actually established a rewards fund. All of them were in hopes of finding April's killer. They also set up funds that they had put to the side for April's family to help her with her funeral services. Because honestly, nobody should have to bury their fucking 8-year-old child ever.
Nobody should have to bury their child
ever. You should never outlive your children.
No.
And so within a few days, the police actually do have a suspect. And they are like, they had literally over 140 tips called into Crime Stoppers about this man, like this person that they have. And this man resembled the sketch they had released, because they had released a sketch because the person who said, I thought I saw a guy shoving a girl in the car, had enough fucking time to stare at the man and give actually quite a decent sketch. I saw the original sketch, and you can completely see how the man who actually got caught, he actually does look very similar to sketch. So you had enough time to recognize this man's face, but you didn't do anything about it. And so they had put out a sketch. They got a ton of Crime Stopper tips and stuff. And one of the neighbors of this guy actually confirmed that there had been a blue van parked outside in front of his home on numerous occasions. So they're kind of like, okay, this is our guy. Well, the man had also reportedly told people he knew that he had knowledge of April's death. So they take him in for questioning, and he is questioned for hours upon hours. And ultimately, he is not charged with the murder of April because they realize he didn't do it. However, he is charged with a completely different charge of molestation of a fucking 11-year-old girl. So he's a shithead anyways. But whatever the questions were, my guess were they were probably asking him questions about like April's body and how she was left, and he couldn't answer them correctly. So he did not have anything to do with her murder. But through this, they were able to connect him to molesting an 11-year-old girl anyways. So good on you, I guess, because you got him for whatever. So now the police are like, okay, that's not our guy. So they do their fucking due diligence, and they actually start walking around, and they collect hair samples from 6 men that they had that were on their short suspect list. They collect hair samples and they send them off to the lab. And when because they would use the hair sample, because I think hair samples was like the closest type DNA for back then.
Yep.
So all 6 samples came back inconclusive because, again, technology just isn't where it needs to be quite yet. And then they questioned nearby sex offenders. They questioned April's family, the neighbors. I mean, everybody. They continue to investigate, but honestly, there's literally nothing for them to go on.
There's no hard evidence.
Every lead that they followed led to a dead end. There was no new information. And then honestly, the case just kind of starts to fade and it starts to go cold. That is until May 21st, 1990. So this is 2 years later.
Okay.
Police actually get called to a location that has like a barn, not very far actually from April's neighborhood. And they're called because there's a message written on the side of this barn in St. Joseph Township. And the message reads, I kill 8-year-old April Marie Tinsley. I will again. They found that this message was also written in crayon, and the crayons were found near the barn. Now, immediately they're like, okay.
Okay, my dumbass was thinking it was like the whole fucking side of the barn.
No.
But
like, it was pretty.
It
was pretty big though. It's a pretty big message, honestly, because they have pictures of it.
Yeah.
And again, not very grammatically correct, but whatever. So the hope now is that they would continue to share this information and have other people be able to like send in tips about the murder, and that it would lead to like obviously somebody. Now, Dan Camp, he was one of the officers that worked on this case for literally 5 years. And he said that they received hundreds of tips and they literally investigated every single tip. Even if it was like, I don't think this would lead to anything, they would investigate it anyways.
Because you never fucking know.
Don't know. And he said that it got to the point where after a while you would just start thinking to yourself, oh, geez, this is just another dead end. Like it was just so
You're losing hope
defeating.
At that point. With how many years go by?
Yep. Now, according to a witness who did live in the area, they actually did say, I saw this guy go to that barn and he like went there several times, but I don't know who he was. But there was a man that went to the barn multiple times. So now they're like, okay, well, that's something. Unfortunately, this did not really help. They literally still have nothing. No witnesses, no evidence, nothing. Not
even the actual crime scene?
Like
the barn wasn't the crime scene?
No, the barn was not the crime scene.
Because that's what I was thinking.
They don't have the person who was like, yeah, I saw a man. They were like, but I didn't see his face. Like I just randomly saw this guy over this barn a couple of different times.
Not
it doesn't really. Yeah,
it just lets us know somebody's shown up at the fucking barn.
So pretty much everything just kind of fizzles out. The thing is, April's family did not let this go. bravo to them. They did not let this go.
That would have been you and Dad.
Absolutely. Because they want to know what happened to their child,
Well, they want
and
somebody
they want
to
justice.
fucking pay for
Absolutely.
it. Like,
so they continue to question the police. And the police, to be fair, don't let it go either. It's not like they just mark it as a cold case. Anytime the parents would question or have an idea, or if somebody would call and be like, hey, this might be something, they would check into it. They didn't just sweep it under the rug. Now, 14 years later, in 2004, Memorial Day weekend, a 7-year-old girl named Emily Higgs finds a plastic bag on her bicycle. Now, she brings this plastic bag to her mom because her bike's like laying like in the driveway or wherever, and she goes to get it, and there's this bag, and she kind of looks at it, and she brings it to her mom, and in this bag is a used condom and a note, and it said, "Hi honey, I've been watching you. I am the same person that kidnapped and raped and killed April Tinsley. You are my next victim. If you don't report this to police, and if I don't see this in the paper tomorrow or on the local news, I will blow up your house." Can you imagine a 7-year-old? That like right
first
there.
of all, a 7-year-old's not gonna fucking know what any of that.
Well,
shit
yeah,
means.
they might not be able to. And also, his handwriting was fucking atrocious. You wouldn't. I mean,
like a child.
Like a child. Like it's hard for me to read them, and so like a child might not even really quite understand. But the word "blow up your house," that's gonna freak you the fuck out. So good on this little girl for bringing this to her mom. So immediately, obviously, the mom contacts the police because she's like, "What the fuck?"
And then you would have been like, "Bitch, try me."
The reason that she does it is because this little girl lives 16 miles away from Fort Worth, Indiana, from where April was taken. However, it is close enough that the family knew all about the April Tinsley murder 14 years ago. And the fact that he mentions April Tinsley in the note, the mom's like, "Nope, we're not fucking around." So they contact the police. Now, the police are able to verify that the handwriting on the note matches the handwriting on the barn. So now they know that this is the same person.
Right.
Now, there actually end up being 3 more young girls who find similar packages on their bikes, and one of them found them in a mailbox. They all contained either a condom, used condom, or a picture of the bottom half of a naked man. And
Jesus Christ.
They all included a note with similar statements. Now, there was something a bit distinctive about the Polaroid pictures in the bags that he'd sent them in. There was a unique bedspread. So, like, he's on a bed. Now, there is a picture of the bedspread, and we are in 2004. This bedspread looks like it's from 1972. It's like that lime green, like swirly, like bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, hold on. This shit, first of all, makes us think that this motherfucker lives around here. Second of all, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to check local hotels and motels to see if they have bedspreads like this. Because if they do, then we'll find out where he, might be taking the picture. So they go to all the different hotels, and none of them have a bed. Obviously, none of them have 1972 fucking bedspreads.
From then.
Yeah. Now, this then now leads the police. They're like, okay, this was taken from his home. And that means he absolutely lives in this area because he's only focusing in this like 16-mile radius.
Right.
So he lives around here somewhere. So they actually release a picture of the bedspread to the public.
I thought you were going to say of the whole picture. I was
no.
like, damn. Man's gonna get shamed.
No, they actually
I mean, they should have fucking shamed the motherfucker, man.
They actually released the picture of the bedspread to the public, and they're like, listen, if you know anybody who has a bedspread that looks like
if you
this,
by chance have been to somebody's house,
let us know.
Let us know.
We'd like to ask him some questions. And it produces nothing.
Obviously.
Not one person is like, oh my God, that's my uncle's.
Kind of figured.
Right? Now, witnesses do come forward though, and they do claim that they actually had seen a forest green van cruising the neighborhood during the time that the notes had been
Instead
delivered.
of a blue pickup.
Right.
Change the cars. Nice.
Right. Well, this is like 14 years later.
I would hope the fucking well, the bedspread didn't change.
True.
So
True.
Fuck.
So the obvious next step is to take the DNA from the used condoms and compare them to the DNA that they found at the original crime scene. Obviously. So they find that the DNA profiles are a match. So now they know that the person sending
it is the same person.
So they know the person sending out these little bags and writing the notes is the person, or is the same person who wrote the notes or wrote on the barn, and that those match the DNA they found on
April
in 1988. So they obviously run this shit through CODIS because they're like, hello. And no, there's nothing in CODIS. There's nothing in CODIS. And so they're like, cool. So we know that we got somebody out here who absolutely did this, but we have no idea who he is.
To this day, I think everybody should have to submit their fucking DNA.
You know what? I am so pro that, but I know most people are like, absolutely not.
You know how much DNA they have now because of like the DNA panels that you can do?
Well, genealogy websites are.
Yeah. That's what it was with the Brian Koberger.
And
was the genealogy.
This happens. That's what I'm saying. This Koberger thing is like so similar to this.
Okay.
So then in 2009, so here we are in 2009 now, the FBI gets involved.
I would hope.
Because at this point, you now have him taunting the police for the last 14 years.
Like, he's still out there. He's not silent.
And there's not any other victims. So it's kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Now, they come in and they do a full-blown profile of the suspect. Now, I don't normally do this, but I'm literally going to read you the profile. It's kind of long, but I'm reading it to you because you have to hear what they profiled him as. This is their profile. We call this individual a preferential child sex offender. By that, we mean he has a long-term and persistent sexual desire for children. In this case, the offender has demonstrated a specific sexual interest in little girls who have not yet reached puberty. In other words, he is attracted to hairless, undeveloped girls. This interest will not go away. Girls between the ages of 5 and 10 would greatly appeal to him. This does not mean he cannot interact sexually with adults or even older children, but his overwhelming sexual fantasies and desires focus on young girls. He may be married. However, the vast majority of preferential child sex offenders are not. If he has a long-term intimate adult partner, that partner will have an idea that this individual has a sexual interest in little girls, but may be in denial regarding the extent of that interest or his ability to act on it. This offender may establish relationships that give him access to little girls. For instance, he may date or befriend someone in the little girl's family. Perhaps he'll seek employment or volunteer activities that give him proximity to little girls. He will be drawn to places where children congregate, playgrounds, swimming pools, parks, etc. Wherever he goes, if a little girl is nearby, his eyes will follow her. He may go out of his way to interact with her. In an unguarded moment, he may even make a casual sexual reference about a little girl, which is, if overheard, would strike someone as very inappropriate, such as, "She's a sexy little thing, isn't she?" Most of us do not associate adult attention toward a child with sexual interaction. People noticing his interest in little girls may simply interpret it as someone who just loves kids. This offender prefers the company of children to the company of adults, and he may be socially awkward or inappropriate when interacting with adults. A preferential child sex offender tends to collect things that serve to support his fantasies and are consistent with his sexual preferences. In this case, since our offender's preference is for little girls, he may collect images of little girls, perhaps clothed, candid pictures, or even child pornography, and probably both. He may take the pictures himself, or he may find them through other sources. He may also collect other items that are arousing to him and remind him of the little girl he wants. These other items could range from articles of clothing to advertisement depicting little girls to Hello Kitty items or any toys that little girls find appealing. The public tends to think that once a person kidnaps, rapes, and kills, he will always kidnap, rape, and kill. In reality, and this is why this is part of the reason why I'm reading it, a preferential child sex offender can engage in a lot of different behaviors that satisfy his sexual needs, but do not rise to the level of the prior offense. The offender may substitute nuisance sex offenses like peeping, indecent exposure, and leaving obscene notes or sexual items for a child to find. So right there, that's what he was doing with those little girls. And leaving the notes. If the item is left in a mailbox or on the front door, the resident may think it was intended for the adult female in the home rather than the little girl who lives there. And oftentimes these incidents are not reported because the significance of the offense is not recognized by citizens at the time. If the preferential child sex offender has a criminal history, it is more likely to involve sex offenses against children. After 2004, so they're talking specifically for him. There has been no known activity by this offender, but we've seen gaps of years in his activity before 1990s, and this could be explained in a number of ways. 1, he could be institutionalized in hospital or prison. 2, he could have an ongoing access to a victim that satisfies his desire for a child partner through a relationship with the adult caretaker. 3, that he could have relocated, or 4, he could be deceased since June of 2004. The primary value of describing this offender is to appeal to the public's help in identifying him. This offender has demonstrated that he has strong ties to the Northeast Fort Wayne and Allen County, and this is where he likely lives, works, and or shops. You may be standing next to him in line at the grocery store, sitting beside him in a pew at the church, or working beside him at the production line. We've said that the offender is currently in his 40s or 50s. However, if you know someone who seems to fit the characteristics described above, but is a few years older or younger, please do not hesitate to report this. So that was the whole FBI profile. Their shortened thing is what they were looking for is a white male who is circumcised, which I thought that was weird that they had that, like they could figure that out. But that's what profilers fucking do. They take the information and they narrow that shit down.
Mom.
What?
There were also pictures of his junk.
You're right.
So they'll know he's circumcised or not. I'm just throwing that out there.
Not wrong.
They'll
not
know.
wrong.
I mean, yeah, good on you, FBI profilers for figuring out he's circumcised, but pretty sure that was the pictures that did that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. His current age is 40s through 50s. He lives and or works in the northeast section of Fort Wayne or Allen County. He frequents places where children are likely to be and focuses on little girls. He is low to medium low income. He owned or borrowed a Polaroid camera in 2004. He has hair on his lower legs. And in 2004, he possibly owned or borrowed a forest green pickup truck having a matching camper shell with dark tinted windows. So they give all this information out with the FBI. Then also during this time, so as the FBI is out here, America's Most Wanted TV show actually airs an episode to try to gain some leads, because I don't know how many of you know America's Most Wanted, but that show, I swear to geez, they literally solve so many cases by just
bringing that shit back,
by bringing them back up and talking about it and asking for leads, and people would call in and then all
they
of a
need
sudden
to bring that shit back.
They would be able to solve stuff. So finally here we are in 2015. Okay, so
holy shit, just 10 years ago?
Just 10 years ago. And again, they still have nothing. No matter, through the FBI profiles, through all that stuff. So in 2015, police end up sending the DNA samples to Parabon Labs. We've talked about Parabon Labs before, actually. Parabon Labs is who helped the girl in Tacoma. Two girls in Tacoma. Parabon Labs is really, here we go.
Good on you, Parabon Labs.
So they send this, and what they were doing is they sent the DNA to Parabon Labs because Parabon Labs at the time would take the DNA and they would produce a sketch of the person based on their genetics and the DNA.
Got it.
So that's what they were doing. I'm not fucking playing with you. I saw their sketch. Now, they had done sketches before, and then this time when they did this sketch, they were like, well, we need to update it. One, we have better technology.
To the age.
Two, he's much older.
Right.
So they did a new sketch, and they aged him 25 years, right? Because that's how long it's been. And they do their DNA genetic makeup sketch, and I shit you not, I looked at this and I was like, that's fucking impressive as hell. It looks just like him. Like legitimately, when I saw the sketch of him, I was like, how is he looking exactly like that? Like, to be fair, I think he was missing teeth when he got arrested. They didn't get that part, but like his shape of his face and shit, like if that's your grandpa, you know that's your grandpa, right? Like if that's your uncle or your dad, you're like, holy fuck, that's my dad. Like that's how good of a sketch it came out. Well, again, nothing comes out of it. In May of 2018,
y'all, that's when
7
I graduated
years
high
ago.
school.
Yeah, 2018, DNA was sent again to Parabon Labs, but this time they sent it to him because Parabon Labs had started using DNA in tandem with GED Match, which is a genealogy website that had been used for previous cases like Golden State Killer. They were able to use the genealogy websites to catch him. They used this same exact genealogy thing for the girls in Tacoma that we've already talked about, episodes back. So they were like, hey, can we find if there's any matches? So they send it in, they do the genealogy thing, and on July 2nd of 2018, CeCe Moore, who is the genealogist that literally is rocking this shit to the core when it comes to genealogy stuff, she narrows it down to two suspects. Two brothers. So clearly, what do? They look into both, right? You just fucking watch. You watch them, you look at their background, you try to figure it out. I don't know how big Fort Wayne, Indiana is. I don't know. I don't know. What I do know, it's frustrating. Let me just say that. So they look into both brothers and they kind of have an inkling of a suspicion. One is more likely than the other. Why you ask? You ask me why you think one is more probable to be your person? Let me tell you. They decide to talk to John because they talk to neighbors and people who know John, like coworkers, and they're like, yeah, he's pretty much secluded like from everybody, and also he's like always angry. Okay, I mean, whatever.
It's like my neighbor.
But tell me why his trailer is literally right next to the barn that the message was found on. Tell me why the fuck that wasn't your first place to go. So he lived in like, it was like a trailer park. The barn was literally in this trailer. Like, why the fuck? Why
y'all could have at least looked up the license plate and been like, hey, that's linked to so-and-so.
More importantly, why the fuck aren't we knocking on doors and asking to look in your fucking bedroom? You had the bedspread pictures.
Especially when you think about it, a trailer definitely would have that kind of a bedspread.
And I'm sitting here going, I mean, yeah, that was 2004, but like you knew that the barn message came in 1990. Why are we not like massively searching this neighborhood? And like, why? Just why are we not having conversations? Like, what the fuck? So anyways, he's like right near this, literally, as they say it in their reporting, it's a stone's throw away, which means it's literally right there.
Right.
They watch, surveil, and he throws garbage out. So garbage, for those of you that don't know, once your trash goes into the trash bin,
it is public.
It is public fucking property.
Yep.
Actually, I think I know in the state of Washington anyways, it has to be on the street for it to be public, but you're throwing your garbage out, you're going to throw it on you're going to put it on the street. So maybe that's what they waited for, but basically,
regardless, your trash becomes public.
Be careful
knowledge.
what you throw away because it's public property.
You don't want certain shit to be out. You got to
for real, or that's why
or
they tell
it.
you're supposed to shred your shit because people can go into your garbage and steal your identity through your garbage. Because they're legally allowed to search through your garbage. People, not just police officers, people, which I personally think is bullshit.
Especially living where we live because we're very close to a very large homeless population too.
And we have people who come and dig through our fucking trash all the time.
All the time.
So they go into his garbage and they actually find used condoms.
God, so fucking gross.
So they take those and they test them. It's a match. They found him. July 15th, 2018, police approached John Miller's house and they ask him, hey, we have some questions for you. Would you please come with us down to the police station? And he's just kind of staring at him. They're like, I mean, do you know why we're here? And his response is April Tinsley. So you know this motherfucker did it, right? Now, during his interview, he actually does confess to murdering April. And he actually says that he kidnapped her, raped and strangled her in his trailer, and then dumped her body later. He is charged with murder, child molestation, and confinement. And he actually originally pleads not guilty on July 19th of 2018, which I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? But on December 7th, 2018, he changes his plea to guilty.
Because you are.
100%.
There's no doubt.
So
you're not
he
guilty.
is actually sentenced to 80 years in prison, 50 years for the murder, and 30 years for child molestation. He was put into the Indiana Department of Corrections. And then on January 19th of 2019, he has actually moved to Newcastle Correctional Facility, which is where he currently resides today. His earliest possible release date, and I verified this. I went on to the Newcastle Correctional Facility. I looked him up and it shows you when he's eligible to leave. Right. He is eligible to get out of prison in 2030 something, but that's for the murder. But then he has a different release date for the child molestation charge. So he has to serve all the way to the child molestation charge. So he is eligible to be released from prison July 15th, 2058. That motherfucker will be 99 years old. He's not living that long.
I swear to God, though.
You should look him up. He's not living that long.
I hope so. This is the one time that I hope somebody fucking treats him. I hope he's somebody's bitch in there. I'm just throwing that out there right now. I hope somebody made him their bitch.
Yeah, he's definitely.
I will apply. I will pay you.
When you look at him, when he was going to trial, he's he looks like a decrepit old man, to be honest with you. I mean, he's obviously not, because his earliest release date is 20 something years from now, but he'll be 99 years old. He's not living that long, period. He's going to die in jail, which is great. He deserves that. But it's just unfortunate that he got to live his life for 30 fucking years before that. However, when you think about the sentence, so I was thinking about this. So he got 80 years. It took him 30 years to get caught. Think about this for a minute. What if he would have gotten caught right away and he got 80 years? He'd have a better chance of living.
That's true.
He'd have a better chance.
He
would have a better chance of getting out of prison. Way better. Because when you think about it, his earliest parole date is 2058. That is a 40 years. So he has a 40 years that he has to serve. So if it was the same exact thing in 1988, 40 years later, that's what, 2000, because I don't do fucking math.
Hold on. What'd you say, 1988?
1988 plus 40 years.
Please hold, people.
Please hold. We are not mathematicians at all.
3 years from now.
So there you go. So because the only saving
hell no.
The only saving grace I can say is because it took so long to find him, he'll die in jail now. Whereas before, he would have gone and served his time and then come out and been registered as a sex offender.
And would have done the same thing.
But very well. And maybe not killed because, again, if you listen to the profile, he doesn't have to kill, but he would be
he'd
a
still
pedophile.
be doing, yeah.
So it's like he would have had a chance to get out of jail and live the rest of his life.
And he'd be the person that would have a bunch of child pornography.
Yes. So
all of that.
Yes, it sucks that it took 30 years to catch him, but at least he got caught and he is going to die in jail. Whereas if he would have been caught earlier, he would have been caught, served his time, and then it would have been one of those things where people say, which I fucking can't stand, but it's true, they paid for their crime. They served their time. They're done. What do you that's the thing I always hear from people. They served their time. And it's like, yeah, but they're still assholes.
Like I said, I hope somebody made him their bitch so that he gets the same treatment.
Well, when you go to jail,
the death part.
When you go to jail for child molestation
you are fucked.
And child murder, you're not fucked because they keep you in a special area so that you don't get killed in
Oh,
Gen
fuck
Pop.
that.
You didn't know that?
Nah, they should put those bitches in Gen Pop. You don't deserve to live.
Anytime that you have a child, any sort of crime, they typically have like one area, one cell block that is specifically reserved for people like that because of, if you get caught and people find out what you went to jail for, there is vigilante justice. Like I actually saw, this is so off topic. There was a TikTok that came across a while ago, and this is exactly why they don't put people in Gen Pop. There was a man who was being brought up on murder charges, and he was already in prison. So he was getting brought up on murder charges because he killed somebody in prison. Okay. And the person he killed was a person who molested children. And the judge asked him, like, why did you, do you find that you are, like, you're the judge, jury, and executioner? Like, what made you think that you had the right? And he said, oh, no, ma'am. He said, I am not the judge, jury, and executioner. Only God can judge you. He said, I just let him get there quicker.
Bravo. Sir, how much would you like in your commissary? I will gladly pay you.
Dad and I just start laughing because I'm like, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. You, sir, that you people who are, especially when it comes to child murder or child molestation.
Anything that deals with
children.
There
is no rehabilitating you.
No.
And even if you could be rehabilitated, I'm air quoting. Even if you could be rehabilitated, you don't deserve to be rehabilitated. Period.
For me, it's one of those, I'm not even a parent, but it's just one of those, and I'm not saying all kids are innocent because there are definitely children murderers and shit like that too.
Kids are assholes, but they don't deserve to die.
But I'm just saying, they're fucking children.
They're children.
They don't know any better.
No, and they don't deserve to die. Even the shittiest of shitty. Well, that's not true. I guess
was like,
there's a few.
Chill out.
There's a few like serial killers and shit that are kids. They're kids when they start.
Girl that we had Mary or whatever.
Mary Bell, but Mary Bell was rehabilitated. Remember, she ended up having a great life. So that's why I'm saying.
But I'm just saying,
but Mary Bell did not deserve to die because of what she did. She was 11 years old when she did it. So it's one of those things. It's like even the worst of the worst children don't deserve to die for what they do because there is that. And again, they're children.
They're fucking children.
Exactly.
They can't put up a fight against a grown ass man.
Nope.
The fuck?
Nope. So I thought this one, like I said, I actually knew this case because I had heard about it a while ago when we had the coffee bar. It was one of the episodes I listened to. I listened to it just so you guys know if you want to hear more in-depth conversation about it. I actually listened to this April Tinsley episode on True Crime Garage, and I love the boys on True Crime Garage, and I love the girls on Morbid. So if you ever want to listen to some really bomb-ass podcasts, those are the two that I genuinely thrive. I try not to do a ton of the same ones as them, but they have so many episodes. They're like in the hundreds. I mean, it's inevitable, but I do listen to their episodes to get some factual information as well. And other than that, if you like what you hear and you like listening to Sierra and I and all of our beautiful, glorious voices, just make sure you're following
Dropping
us.
F-bombs.
Just make sure you're following us on any platform that you're listening to us on. And new episodes will come out every Tuesday. And other than that, I'm going to say catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye, bitches.